The most successful form of gun control just passed, and nobody even noticed it. Today I'm going to tell you how a Second Circuit Court of Appeals is pushing and actually enacting laws on the books without a single vote, without Congress's approval, in order to restrict your gun rights. Now, of course, I'm going to fill you in on what's going on, how this affects you, and why this argument is so ridiculous, but also I would discourage you from thinking, oh, this just affects people in the one state we're talking about, because as we've seen time and time again, this stuff tends to spread like wildfires. And this is just the type of move that they're going to use. While on a federal level, gun control is being stripped away, rights are actually being restored, on a state level, this is sometimes where the most important gun right battles actually come into place. So just letting you know to be vigilant, not only in the state we're talking about, but in other states as well, because you may see more of this. I honestly cannot believe that they got this passed through, but they did. And of course, I want to hear your opinion, whatever it might be. If you live in this state or you live in one of these other states that might be affected as well, let me know your experience with this down below. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So a Second Circuit Court of Appeals in Manhattan found that gun manufacturers can be held liable if somebody uses those guns in one of these mass tragic type of events, or uses them negligently, and it doesn't even have to be in one of these mass tragedy events. Now, if this sounds familiar, it kind of is, because the Supreme Court just shot down a lawsuit from Mexico. The only country ever to try to sue American gun manufacturers for the crime going on in their country was just shot down by the Supreme Court. And yet, one of these lower courts found that this is not unconstitutional. Now, essentially what they're saying is that gun manufacturers should be utilizing reasonable methods in order to deter criminals from using their guns. What's reasonable, you may ask? Well, that's kind of the same question I have, but essentially what they want gun manufacturers to do is not sell to FFLs or distributors in higher crime areas. Not only do they want them to stop selling in higher crime areas, but they also want them, of course, to stop making so-called assault type of weapons. High capacity, or like we call them, standard capacity magazines. Avoiding certain states with weaker gun laws. Do you see a pattern here? They essentially want gun manufacturers to enact their own form of gun control by circumventing federal law and basically enacting their own form of gun control within the gun manufacturers themselves. They want the gun manufacturers to basically say, okay, well, this state isn't recognizing that having a magazine over, let's just say 10 rounds, an arbitrary number, they don't want to recognize that. So unless you want to be held liable, Mr. Smith & Wesson or whoever, you shouldn't be selling in that state. Or that state should only be able to accept your guns if they have 10-round magazines, or maybe no pistol grips, or they can only have bullet buttons. We can think about all the ridiculous limits set in some of these states, but that's essentially what they're saying. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals is pushing the gun manufacturers and saying, you could be sued to oblivion if you don't enact gun control yourself. Forget Congress, federal law, state laws, all of that kind of stuff. You're the ones that should be enacting that. Never mind that there's a whole law protecting gun companies for things just like this. The Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, that's not applicable here because, these gun manufacturers are so different. They should be held to much higher standards. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's like saying, hey, Ford, you're going to have to stop putting bigger engines in your vehicles. No more Raptors and Raptor Rs and Mustangs and all this kind of stuff, because people decide that they want to break the law and go over the speed limit. And there's a chance that, hey, people may buy this and misuse your product. So you're going to have to limit the size of the engine that you actually put into your vehicles. Right? Do you have the ability to sue Craftsman because somebody took one of their wrenches and threw it through a window, or maybe beat somebody with it? Can you hold Steel and Husqvarna liable because Leatherface used a chainsaw one time? Maybe people saw the movie and they imitated that. What about Tide? Can we hold them accountable for some stupid TikTok trend? Maybe we can sue Goodyear and Michelin because they make tires and somebody may use those tires to do damage to somebody else or to harm somebody else. You get the point, right? We could come up with a million of these analogies. And while there's been some people that have been successful in, let's just say, suing McDonald's because it made you fat, just remember these are the same types of people and the same reasons that you have warnings on hair dryers. Hey, don't use this in the shower. Or wheelbarrows, not for highway use. We have warnings on absolutely everything because of situations just like this. The point is, there's no other business that is held to these types of standards, and it's unreasonable to ask gun manufacturers to deter crime. That is not their purpose. And so essentially what you're going to have is a ton of lawsuits against these companies, and what does that do? That takes them away from their core mission, which is providing constitutional rights to you. Meaning now you're going to make it harder for people that are on limited incomes to buy guns to protect themselves. Why? Well, if you have gun companies always tied up in these silly lawsuits, then that's less money that they can use for innovation, more money they're throwing away to courts and lawyers, and also they're going to have to raise prices on the guns that they make. It also undermines you, right? Because most people vote against gun control. I think most people are realizing that, reasonable gun control only leads to additional gun control. They always go for the lowest hanging fruit first, ban the AR. Even though ARs and rifles like that are used in less than 3% of crimes, never mind that, right? It's really easy to make this look scary, and let's just be honest, nobody really needs that. That's the common argument that they use. But then it only stacks up from there, and then they go after handguns and then shotguns, and then eventually you're left with nothing. So if you're not going to vote for it, they say, well, we're going to make this the law in our state, so regardless if you vote for it or not, that's going to be the law of the land. They make it harder on Americans to exercise their rights. Whatever way they can do that, they will absolutely push for it. They also want to restrict gun companies in the way they advertise. Remember, they did the same thing with Marlboro and some of these big tobacco companies back in the day. They basically sued them into submission. Now, you could say, oh, well, there's less smoking now, that there's less advertising and it's not pushed in people's faces as much, but let's just be honest, there's still a lot of people out there that smoke. Plus, you're not talking about a constitutional right. It was easy for them to essentially ban smoking and demonize it the way they did, and by suing them into oblivion, making them remove ads, targeted ads, even removing Winston from NASCAR, they essentially tried to remove it from the public spotlight and made it try to seem like everybody that actually did smoke was actually a bad person. That's exactly what they're trying to do to gun owners right now. Because you own this type of gun, because you want this type of magazine, or because you want restrictions lifted, you are a bad person. They're trying to do the same exact thing, this time though, with a constitutional right. Circumventing the fact that gun sales have consistently gone up and crime has consistently dropped. Over the past 2 decades, we have seen a drop in that. But if you're a criminal out there, you're not going to follow the law. You don't care about ads. You could care less about restrictions. The only person this is going to affect is you, your family, and your rights. There you go. There's my opinion. I'd love to hear yours, man. Let me know, what state do you think this will go to next? By the way, I think California, New Jersey, New York, Illinois has tried this, Hawaii. All the common anti-freedom type of states are already doing this, but remember, it can spread and go much further than those states. There's my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold 'em down.